Good to have you join us on Insight today. Now that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement has been signed by Nigeria, it's raised a lot of concerns when Nigeria said it will not sign, but undergoing consultation in the public and private sectors, just like the Economic Partnership Agreement mooted by the European Union. Nigeria said it will not sign, and up to now, Nigeria has not signed because Nigeria says it is in violation of the World Trade Organization Treaty. Now, Nigeria has signed the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. So, on discussion segment today, we shall be looking at safeguards ahead of the takeoff of this free trade area in Africa. Is Nigeria ready? Is Africa ready? Have we plotted the loopholes to ensure that should businessmen, developed countries will not come, brainwash our people to truncate the process in Africa? That will be the focus on discussion segment on Insight. On media review?
All right, we call it the biggest signature ever in the history of Africa. But on the media, on the segment, we shall be taking a look at the role of the media in driving the components of the agreement. What do we stand to gain? How would an ordinary Nigerian understand what the agreement means? So we have a lot to discuss on the segment, and my guess is very vast.
Okay, we just have to believe that the business desk of all media has released it up and break it into pieces
down, yes,
to the understanding of every
for
Nigerian.
a layman.
Okay, that's the focus. Up next on Insight is the discussion segment. Don't go away. On discussion segment today, we shall be looking at safeguards ahead of the full takeoff of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement in Africa. This is not a Nigerian thing, but if the safeguards are not in place, is it possible that some smart companies, some groups, some individuals, even some Nigerians could liaise or collaborate with some shrewd businessmen outside Africa to ensure the process fails? Well, my guest on set, I have Ken Okoha. Ken Okoha is the president of Nigerian Traders Association, and he is a member of the Presidential Steering Committee on Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Good to have you on the side.
Thank you very much, Adel.
Also, I have Ni Akinsiju, investment analyst, and for information, Ni Akinsiju is also the chairman Buhari Media Organization. Good to have you on the side.
A pleasure, thanks.
Yes, this agreement has been signed after much consultation by Nigeria, and you happen to be the president of Nigerian Traders Association, beside being the presidential steering committee. What are the safeguards in place?
Well, for every agreement, every trade agreement, every trade and economic agreement, so to speak, there must be safeguards in place. And those safeguards are written in black and white. And then there's also protocol on safeguards. And one of these safeguards could be the rules of origin, which talks about where the goods are originating or the level of value addition that is on that particular good. So if it does not come or originate entirely from a member of the parties in the agreement, then it is no longer acceptable. And then we also have what we call technical barriers. We also have administrative barriers. And all of these are courtesy of the WTO General Agreements on Tariff and Trade. But in this case, the AFCFTA is a trade agreement negotiated by parties within the African continent, 54 countries. Now, if we understand this very clearly, what it means is that whereas the EPA was dealing with issues of trade, liberalization, issues of the liberation of services also that was talked about between Africa and Europe. This one is talking about intra-Africa, intra. Now, let's move a bit out of the definition. There are two things that should have brought some concerns, perhaps the gap you're looking at in the EPA, that the AFCFTA would also be, happy to look at. One is the extent of liberalization. Okay. Under the EPA, there was a 75% liberalization. And of course, you see, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire had about 81 and 83% in terms of their interim agreements under the EPA. But West Africa, under ECOWAS, succeeded in negotiating 75% liberalization. But here we are under the AFCFTA, it is a 90% liberalization. Now, the differences also is in the level of development. The EU is a structurally developed economy. The EU, one of the reasons why we refused signing the EPA is because, one, all the analysis that were conducted at that time when we were negotiating were all showing negative, serious implications, debilitating ones against Nigeria. And of course, the EU was gaining so much so far, and Nigeria was losing more. And we said, no, we can't get into an agreement with our eyes open where we will subjugate our economy into the hands of somebody who is going to benefit more, and then we are losing.
So is it not possible with what you have analyzed now? What you have analyzed now, that if the EFC takes off, right, yes, that maybe I'm France, for instance, you are, say, Sierra Leone, for instance, I could package a product and come to
That's what I'm heading to.
Drop it in Sierra Leone, and in Sierra Leone
how this works.
We rebrand it and call it Sierra Leone products.
No, you need to understand this.
Okay.
And I've mentioned earlier the standard rules of origin, which is embedded in every agreement as a safeguard.
Good.
It's a technical one. So if these goods are coming from Sierra Leone, number one is that they must be originating from Sierra Leone. That means everything about it is from Sierra Leone, not from a third party.
How will you know?
Nothing. Thank you. That's where I'm coming to. Because, there is also under that same rules of origin what we call value addition.
Okay.
That particular product, the rules of origin may say up to 60%, just like it is in the ETLS, ECOWAS Trade Liberation Scheme. In the whole of ECOWAS, it permits about 40% value addition. Okay? So that means that you can source 40% of the raw materials used in production of that particular item from outside the enclave of that agreement. Okay. So that's how it works. But beyond the rules of origin safeguard, there are other mechanisms. Take, for instance, administrative mechanisms, safeguards, we call them. There are technical safeguards, technical barriers. There are also administrative barriers. Administrative in the sense that you can say, okay, well, there are quota. There is these goods are coming into volumes, into Nigeria in volumes, and we are not sure that you are the one producing such volume because you do not have the capacity to produce, such volume in your country. And I give you an instance of what happened under oil in West Africa here. And at the point, we discovered that a lot of oil were, palm oil was coming into Nigeria from, other West African countries under the ETLS.
Okay.
And, wait a minute. We said, look, come on. There is no country in West Africa that can produce such quantity.
Exactly, yeah.
Then we now triggered what we call some examinations. And later we now discovered that some countries, I don't want to mention their names, in West Africa, we are importing palm oil from Malaysia, and then repackaging and sending to Nigeria and writing that.
That now we are getting worried about.
That's the worry, the concern you are talking about. But here, we are also talking about that's what triggers the essence of the jolting up of
let me leave this and go to the two of you. Now, this document came in from the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Says the administration is making more investments in the agri sector, 11 fertilizer blending plants with a capacity of 2.1 million revived. Fertilizer price has since dropped from 13,000 naira per 50 kg to 5,500. Boost in local production as official imports down to 2%. Now, going further, where I'm going to now, so that we'll go now. The Vice President noted that with a substantial percentage of the world's arable land and over half of that uncultivated, it is becoming clearer that Africa and Nigeria have the potential to become a major food basket in the world. According to him, China's demand alone has 27% of the world's population, but only 7% of the world's arable land for agriculture. China needs 2 million tons of hybrid soya beans per annum for livestock feed, and vegetable oil have not met that demand. Now, if this is the potential we have and we don't check it, we fear that some smart business people, some shrewd business people from Africa, from Nigeria, from the African countries will connive with the developed world to make this thing a failure in Africa. That's the worry. I don't know.
Your concerns are legitimate, quite all right.
Absolutely.
But what we're also saying is that those concerns can be turned to opportunities. Now, where the vice president perhaps will be looking at it from is the opportunities there. And you are looking at the threats.
It's beautiful.
It is good to understand
the opportunities are there, but if we don't work towards them.
No. The opportunities rather present to us investments that can come in. Somebody can say, look, these guys have arable land. They have this. Let me move in. Let me move from China to come to this place. So as to be part and parcel of that. And by so doing, he's increasing your productivity. You are also leveraging on the employment opportunities created therein. He's also making sure that whatever you produce can also be latched upon and exported to other countries.
Follow up on that, given the trade area's potential to configure intra-African market and continent's relationship with global trading systems, consulting Nigerians should play an important role in signing the agreement. Given where we are regarding that we didn't sign EPA, Nigeria had a position to say we won't sign EPA because, one, EPA is already in violation. And for information, EPA is the Economic Partnership Agreement. It's already in violation of the World Trade Organization Treaty. Now, this has been signed. So, if we don't contemplate moving on beyond where we are in terms of just being a production economy, what happens?
Well, I think we also need to first contextualize the Nigeria's own philosophy and the undercurrent of our relationship, of our foreign relationship. Our foreign relationship is principally African-focused. So for me, the AFCTA in the first instance is an original concept that should be naturally resident in the Nigerian psyche, as it were. Historically, the Nigerian nation had always focused on being the pivot of activities and developments in Africa. And we have seen our activities either in Liberia, Sierra Leone, other countries in Africa. So it is essentially a Nigerian-made idea. And we can say that because before now, before the gale of consultations, the making of AFCTA was principally a Nigerian thought-led concept. But it got to that stage of realization, and there was that need to further consult because of the fear you have expressed here, fear of dumping, fear of smuggling, fear of third-party countries, exploiting some loopholes to dump their own goods and all that in the Nigerian jurisdiction. But the truth of the matter is, I think this agreement, this trade zone area would serve and advance the economic cause of Nigeria perhaps better than any other jurisdiction, any other country in Africa, if it is properly done. And part of being properly done is this consultation that the president had undertaken. Now, the president signing the agreement is actually a vitiation of the fact that he had given the right of advice and counsel to the stakeholders. It is not a federal government decision. It is the decision of stakeholders that are directly involved in trading and transaction activities in Nigeria and across Nigerian borders. So to that extent, I see a buy-in of all stakeholders and a commitment of those stakeholders to make this work. And sincerely, this should be the approach to making policy work. It's the bottom-up approach. You take this idea to the people that are directly interested, that are directly concerned, and let them make the decision. Now, the beauty of this is that it is not just only the federal government that want to make this work, but those that had counseled the president to sign this agreement
just very
that
last
want
one.
to make it work.
Let me take on the very last one now on this particular area before we continue. Is if you're asked to mobilize everybody, what strategy will you use so that they key to it? Because some people will now say, it's their thing. It's not our thing.
No.
It's an African thing.
No. It can't be said so.
Okay.
Do you know why? Because it's an opportunity created for the private sector. It's also an opportunity created for job creation. It's also an opportunity created for those who are leaving schools, who are looking for jobs. Now, do you know that it's an opportunity for this human being, this young man who has been looking for a job, and there's no white-collar job. Government is so oversaturated in terms of employment in the government work. But then he sees that factory ABC or XYZ is producing one item. But then, because of his new knowledge, because of what he came out from university with, he now says, I am going to add value to that ABC that this company is producing. And it comes up with innovation.
Okay.
And, because such innovation is what is needed that will create great market for that particular company, the company quickly, receives him. He becomes an employee already. If not so, he can sell what he has, the intellectual property he has, to that factory. And makes money. These are opportunities there. But there's something that is very important that we need to look at there. When we're talking about population of people that will, latch into the agreement, into the opportunities here. Every country where you go to in Africa, you must find Nigerian traders.
Okay.
In their thousands, if not millions. Okay. Now, if that is the case, they must be used by government as ambassadors of this AFCFTA.
Okay.
And that's one idea that I think that the president would need to initiate a meeting between the presidency and Nigerian traders. Let's sit down and dialogue. There are things that these traders will let the president know, or whoever the president, identifies as his representative, that the government do not know.
Okay.
And these are the keys that will help us to take over.
And we can come from another point of view.
Yes.
Establish that this point of view is validated, The fears over trade war between China and U.S. For me, what I'm seeing is opportunities.
Okay.
Because what it means is that U.S. is scaling up tariffs on China products. Because, again, rule of origin, U.S. is aware of where the products are coming from and is sanctioning the product more or less, directly or indirectly. Now, what you see going forward, if this war is sustained, are companies producing those products, in China, relocating to more amiable, mitigating jurisdiction to produce same and export.
What if there are no laws to check them?
No, they are not. We are not talking of loss now. We are talking of opportunities.
No laws in place to sanction those who will attempt to do my fears.
No, you don't. What I'm saying is this.
Yeah.
I've even moved from AFCTA
to
the trade war between China and U.S., where U.S. is premeditatively sanctioning China for so many reasons. Now, for a smart investor in China, because the origin of the product is China, and the destination of that product is a state in the U.S., the U.S. is sanctioning based on that transaction lines. Now, that smart investor would say, okay, rather than produce in China and export to U.S. from China, why don't I relocate my production outfit to Nigeria, to Botswana, or wherever. When you locate to Nigeria, you become a Nigerian entity. You can produce and then supply, export to China. I'm just talking about the trade war now. Now, in the same vein, for instance, this rule of origin we're talking about.
Yes.
I think in the FCTA, it's 80%, that the content sourced from the originating jurisdiction must be 80%, and value added must be 20%. There are going to be provisions for originating jurisdiction for examinations, so that you do not just export to your private jurisdictions without examination. So you have examination officers that will also profile the contents and approve. These are some of the administrative content, of the agreement that will go with it. We are not saying, it's going to be foolproof. I don't think so. There would still be some social elements that will want to exploit some of these loopholes. But again, there is a consciousness, of these weaknesses, as it were. And once there is a consciousness, a policy has been put, or policies have been put in place, it will only need to strengthen the policies, as it were. And like I said, we may be scared of our own jurisdiction, fearful of dumping, fearful of smuggling, fearful of even competitiveness, of our jurisdiction. But I am saying that more than anything, we still have a stronger, higher capacity to produce competitively, going forward. And we are not talking just about 1 year, 2 years. We are not talking of just the near term. We are talking of the medium to long term. Okay. So even if we are disadvantaged in the near term, and we are conscious of our capacity, what we need to do is to strengthen our capacity going forward, so that in the mid-term to the long term, we can profitably exploit these opportunities.
Okay. The other one that I need to sell out before I take the next question is, the VP said, the Vice President said, Africa as a whole has also been able to meet China's demand for cocoa. How about goat meat? 120,000 carcasses of goat meat is required weekly in different Arab countries. There is still a major gap in supply here as well. I'm just looking at the long-term picture. If we're able to be proactive here, you see what we'll gain.
What the Vice President is saying, these are opportunities everywhere for us.
But if we don't use it well, can it work?
We've not been using it before. So it is just self-realization now. That's what the Vice President is saying. These opportunities had always been there. We abandoned our growth trajectory away from agriculture and latched on to oil and gas, and we forgot all those other opportunities. Okay. We forgot that we could, you could still latch on to oil and gas and still use the capacity building from oil and gas to expand your capacity in agriculture and other related sectors. And that is what the Vice President is saying. Okay. I would not, people that are talking of diversify away from oil and gas, I say no, you diversify in addition to oil and gas. We are yes an oil producing country, but we are more of a gas producing country. Not even exploited 20% of our gas reserve. And that is where the world is going. There are clear moves against our oil. There are clear moves against oil production, as it were, either through the shale production or even through diversification to electric-powered vehicles and other technologies. So you could see, going forward in 20, 30 years, there are predictions that use and demand of oil would fall, but not gas. Okay. Gas is not threatened, as it were, so which means that we need to start moving our attention to how we want to exploit and, of course, export our gas. Now, that is one. Our agriculture is the bedrock of our economy. It is natural to us. 70% of of Nigeria's land, either water, land, and what it's about agriculture. So if the president is the vice president is talking about 133,000, that is just in one area of the world, though. It's just in the Middle East. It's not talking about the Americas. It's not talking about even the Arctic areas and all that. So we have huge opportunities. And of course, you are also moving us away from AFCTA to global trade now. So you can imagine if we can appropriate all these opportunities and start from our own markets. We have not even saturated. We have not used up our market, the Nigerian 200 million plus market. It is huge enough, If we are able to do that, we will be at a level that is even higher than any country in Africa, So it is going to just be a bonus if we are now able to exploit other jurisdictions in Africa, and then, of course, other jurisdictions globally. So it's an economic power that is waiting to be discovered. And we thank God that we have a vice president that is conscious enough that can now start docketing product by product, opportunities by opportunities that are available for Nigerians to exploit, as it were.
Okay, that takes me to the next question on Ken. Now that we are preparing towards the full takeoff of this agreement, which is it next year? Is it June or July? July, okay, fine. Let me give you this cue. When we had the flooding crisis in Nigeria, so much support came from the world. But it was then the Nigerian government realized that the emergency policy in Nigeria was not in place. And so much funds came in, there was no account to domicile those funds. So some of them returned back and we lost. So if we don't start out to prepare ahead of the takeoff, that's part of why we came up with this program. For instance, we know in all these customs will be available to do a lot of work, a lot of enforcement, implementation, quarantine, all that. If immigration, all that. What are the plans? You served the committee to prepare Nigeria to be in sync with other African countries before the takeoff of this program.
Thank you very much. And I think this is where we are supposed to be, hammering on right now. We have advised the president to sign. All stakeholders, I mean, just like he said, the president took a right decision. First of all, through sensitizations and consultations among people, and people laid out their files, all the legitimate concerns that you've noted here were also explained and elaborated upon. And then the president also set up a committee to now do analysis, and these were conducted severally and technically. And at the end of the day, we saw all of these potholes, we saw all of these gaps. But then we were like being between the Red Sea, the devil and the Blue Sea. If we say we do not sign, there were terrible consequences. If we say we sign, there are also consequences. But what do? We now took a path, if you like, Appian way. The Appian way now comes this way. Now, what are the things that we should do? First of all, we should be prepared in terms of what you lightly pointed about.
Yes.
Safeguard. Apart from the rules of origin I mentioned earlier, apart from the technical barriers, apart from the administrative barriers, there are also what I call strategic barrier, and I want to raise this flag. Strategic in the sense that, yes, the best way to defend is to attack. And in trade, you can now begin to attack other countries, not defending your territory. You can bring in what you want, but I will first of all be the one to now attack you with my goods. You open your economy, because this is exactly what we have all together signed. Open. Whatever I have here, why the country, the government is now looking at our trade policy in, producing all the necessary documents that we need to produce, while the government is also looking at ways of stabilizing the customs to ensure that our borders are really protected, while we are also, looking at the security agencies to now look at the fact that the insurgents will not come in because of, courtesy of the agreement in trade, free movement of persons and goods. Now we are also ensuring that the agencies of government, in terms of security also, are also guarding themselves in terms of intelligence gathering and all of that to ensure that small arms do not come in the more through the free movement protocol that we have signed. These are things that we need to now look at. Okay, government like NEPC, Nigerian Export Promotion Council, what are you going to do? It is no longer business as usual. It is no longer going to have, trade mission in South Africa, trade mission in Tunisia, trade mission in... No. It goes beyond that. Where does it come to now? We can now begin to strategically build our export strategies in terms of warehouses in these countries. Now moving the goods that were produced by the PZs of this world, the Cadbury's of this world, move the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, merge together. Now give us manufacturers these products. We now launch out and put them in those garages, in those warehouses, so that those countries are seeing them already. They become markets there. No longer moving people, using money, government money to, send people. No. Construct, build, establish those warehouses in those countries. They will now domicile our goods already. Before they take off of the agreement, our goods are standing already looking at them. And of course, it's popularizing Nigerian goods.
I feel very enthused about this.
And I think it's something that we need to... These are some of the strategies that we already plotted. Okay. And we said, okay, now, we know that South Africa is doing better than all the countries of Africa in terms of, trade, in terms of commodity trade. South Africa is doing 23.5%, while the second to South Africa, which is Namibia, is doing 5%. Look at the gap there. And then the third is Zambia, doing 4.9%, and now fourth is Nigeria. Okay. In commodity trade, fourth internationally, 4.4%. Now, how do we now change the dynamics? What we need to do is to strategically look at areas. We have been paying lip service to issues of diversification. Look at those areas. Do some sampling of the goods that are moving the ShopRites of this world, the malls that you mentioned earlier. Take a sample of the goods that are there. Now, there should be some level of innovation, research and development that would innovate, that will put, add value to those goods on those tables, and then packaging. Everything goes in line, and then before you say Jack, they are on there at the shelves, waiting for consumption. We will no longer be exporting raw materials in terms of agro-produce, which is doing 2.5%. We will no longer be doing 0.9%. 1.9% in terms of manufactured products, where we will now have to move whatever cocoa we have here. We will see now that we are bringing in foreign direct investors that will now set up factories, process cocoa. Let us take cocoa, ordinary cocoa, raw cocoa from Cote d'Ivoire, from Ghana, and then, refine them and bring chocolate. And we will now reduce imports from Netherlands, imports from Switzerland, and we are increasing our export to other countries in Africa that are, consuming, chocolate. And if you come to many other, in terms of our oil industry, we are no longer exporting raw crude fully like that. We will not stop that, but we are going to look at hydrocarbons. We are going to look at, how we can produce some of those ones, the gas that he mentioned. How do we export them? Now, Morocco was a challenge one time. And Morocco said they wanted to enter into ECOWAS. Yeah. And we said no, because of security. And we knew what we were looking at. We looked at security implications. We also looked at the trade implications, knowing that Morocco is there at the hill where Europe comes in. Sure. Therefore, in order to guard against goods, unwanted, unneeded goods coming in from Europe like that without, under the ETLS. And we said, no, Morocco, just hold on. But now, we have no choice. Morocco is a member of the African Union. And Morocco rushed quickly and signed. And therefore, they are part and parcel of it.
Readmitted member.
Readmitted. And then, what do we need to do? It comes to that safeguard again that you mentioned.
Very critical.
What do we do to safeguard our economy? You are not saying that the goods should not come in from Morocco, but you are saying that these are the contents of the agreement. And I read somewhere, very lovely, in terms of law, in the objective setting up AFCFTA, there are three tripod objectives. One is integration of Africa, two is prosperity of Africa, and the third one is a peaceful Africa. And therefore, rising on that particular third, tripod, you can say, for a peaceful Africa, Nigeria is insisting that issues about xenophobia should be treated alongside the agreement. And then we negotiate and say, look, come on, guys, Nigeria is suffering insurgency at this time. And therefore, because we want to have a peaceful Africa, in that spirit, we want to renegotiate and then put in a clause in the AFCFTA that talks about goods, harmful goods, and then movement of goods, how some clauses that can limit the movement in the process of the AFCFTA.
Sure, you have explained that. Let's come back to Nigerians, the people. Nigerians, Africans, because African citizens put together, Nigerian citizens, they have a role to play here. And I'm propelled by this comment here. For Nigeria, the agreement's dispute settlement mechanism would also be a major advance against hostile and discriminatory trade practices. But it does have concerns. This includes unfair trade practices such as dumping. We have talked about that. Now, if the patriotic zeal of Nigerians is not reoriented, is it possible that they can speak this? Our worry media-wise is the shrewdness in the business world. A businessman wants profits. A capitalist who wants profits. A developed nation that wants to break through, to frustrate this African agreement, they will do everything to achieve it. If, for instance, a Nigerian who is not patriotic is approached and they tell him, look, just accept this. We'll look for you to give you these goods. This is how much you make. We'll pay you these thousands of dollars every month. If he does not have his patriotic zeal reoriented, it's possible he'll give in. Is it possible?
It's possible.
So how can government work on the people to be ready and conscientized ahead of the takeoff of this policy?
Reorientating people are functions of both communication and policies. He had outlined some of these strategies. Yes, you galvanize interest, you create through communication channels, you create the nationalistic fervor, in among and amongst Nigerians. But it's still not enough because the human tendency is opportunistic. So where the average human being sees an opportunity, especially to undercut a system, there's a proclivity to exploit it. And that is why there's a need constantly to have an exigency, prepared to engage such opportunity. So, along what he has said, don't forget recently the CBN pronouncement on companies or entities smuggling rice and crude palm oil into Nigeria. Our outlook had been to have custom agents and custom officers go to the border, stop them and all that. But that's been upscaled now to say investigate the accounts of these entities in this country. If it is found out that through their account they have been smuggling or collaborating in smuggling these items that are not supposed to access foreign exchange into this country, they should be stopped or banned from even operating bank accounts. Now that is getting to the roots of things, of issues like this. So it means that no matter how big you are as a corporate entity and you have been found out to be involved in this, you are sanctioned as appropriate and it becomes a deterrent, for others. So policy is always important. It's the first time I'm hearing this counter-attack, strategy. It's so delightful that we can think of it, but it comes with a lot of implication. It means that inside our own system, our infrastructural, the basic primary infrastructural projects and facilities must be upgraded. It means that our business enabling environment must be upgraded. It means that banking intermediation with businessmen and all that must be upskilled. So many things are involved. And in realizing that, it means that we would have also created an appropriate world-spinning enabling environment in the Nigerian domestic scene, which is the most important thing. So now, where you have the Nigerian person that can lash on or plug in into these opportunities that are being created as a result of this FCTA, why would such person now be tempted in the first instance? Because already there are opportunities that they can exploit for his own advancement. And I think that's the most important thing going forward.
Well, I'm so happy that we have touched this, but I think working on the safeguards ahead of the takeoff of the EFCTA is such a huge project. We need hours upon hours to handle this. Well, I must say it was nice having you, Ni Akinsiju, investment analyst,
Pleasure.
and Ken Okoha, National President of the Nigerian Traders Association and member Presidential Steering Committee on this. And sometimes somebody told me, he's so sharp. How come he's a trader? I say he's a trade lawyer. Am I correct?
Lawyer.
So that's having you on Inside.
Thank you very much.
Up next on Inside is the media review segment. Stay with us.
With the signing of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement by President Muhammadu Buhari recently, stakeholders are eager to know the benefits inherent. But the question is, what is the role of the media in ensuring that there is comprehension? My guest, Olawale Hamzat, a producer with the NTA Programs Department, will provide answers. It's nice to have you in our studio.
My pleasure.
All right, so tell us, what exactly would be the role of the media in ensuring that stakeholders, a layman, understand what the agreement is all about?
Fundamentally, the AFCFTA is an initiative of the African Union, and being the initiative of the African Union means that it's an homegrown effort by the regional bloc to ensure that we integrate economically, and of course, the many issues of Africa not interacting with each other are put on the side. The media have a huge role to play, in ensuring that the populace, Africans, Nigerians, as it were, get to know the benefit of this, because it's not enough to craft all these noble initiatives, agreements, beautiful impact on the economy. The people that these things will impact on need to understand the role they will play and the kind of benefits, so that way they can key into the many benefits of the FTA.
Okay. All right, now let's talk about trade itself. Most people do not really understand what the components are all about. They want to know, because this will spur growth, economic growth. Entrepreneurs will come up. There will be job creation, wealth creation, and job generation. Now, media has a role to play. Are we ringing the bell?
First, I begin with the media themselves. A lot of our colleagues need to understand what the agreement itself is all about, because you cannot give what you don't have.
Yes.
The people who would disseminate need to understand the message they are conveying to the public in the first instance. So I will begin with the media themselves. The media need to acquaint itself with the AFCFTA, the benefits, and the framework of how the AFCFTA will work in countries and, of course, in the region. Then, of course, we can now translate to how the populace should be informed. Now, many times, policies and programs of government get lost in ambiguity. Ambiguity in the sense that we speak too much English in this part of the world. We are typically grassroots people in Africa. That's not to say I'm undermining our people, but the real sense is that there is no meaning communicating with people when the message is lost in the communication process. So the media itself needs to understand what the AFCFTA is all about. And then, of course, our mode of transmitting these messages to the people have to be the everyday language. I watch many television programs since the signing of the agreement by Nigeria. And even the elites, so to say, are confused.
Yes.
You know why? Because the language of communication of the AFCFTA, I've seen many media jargons, permits the word now, because even the acronym, many media houses get it wrong. It's AFCFTA, not ACTA.
Yes, not the other way around.
Now, what that tells you, the fact that the media itself doesn't even understand the message. So the media have a huge role to play in the sense that we need to break down the benefits. Okay. We need to break down the framework, how the whole AFCFTA will impact jobs for young people.
Yes.
Many African countries are plagued with unemployment. Now you are having the largest singular market in the world, 1.2 billion people. That's huge.
That's huge.
Now, manufacturing is going to bloom, industrialization. You're talking about transformation in raw produce from Africa. I mean, Côte d'Ivoire, for instance, produce the largest cocoa in the world. Now, how do you translate your cocoa produce into chocolate, into beverages?
Okay, now, before we delve into that and then talk about standardization, let's talk about local manufacturers. Now, no doubt, with the signing of that agreement, there's an open market in front of Africa.
Absolutely.
And she's ready to hit the market.
Absolutely.
Now, what will happen to the local economy? Will this agreement harm or grow the economy?
In turn, it's a huge benefit for local economies across Africa. Now, what that tells you...
Because we understand that the bigger markets, the bigger players in the economy are already taking advantage. Well,
that's not true. On the surface, many people will see it that way.
Okay.
But you see, to imagine a local producer in Aba, for instance, who probably have a market range of just maybe the Aba township and maybe neighboring states, now have a huge region open to you because of the framework of the AFCFTA. You have the borders, because part of the benefits and the framework of AFCFTA is that you're going to have less border restrictions.
Yes.
You're going to have less border barriers. Now, what that implies is that instead of crossing the border and paying plenty tariffs, you're going to be paying minimum tariffs across the border.
Yes.
So for local players, for small, medium players, you know, in Africa, they have a to market to, a huge market to relate with. Okay. So I don't see threat to the smaller countries or to the smaller players. Huge markets ahead, markets and suburbs.
Borders. How do we handle these challenges?
The previous ones on the continent is that it took cognizance of so many loopholes, so many failings of the previous agreement.
Okay.
One of the reasons why Nigeria didn't sign, you know, it took us almost a year, or over a year actually, to sign the agreement, is the fact that Nigeria was concerned about the rule of origin. The rule of origin implies that you need to guarantee that the product coming into our economy is really and truly manufactured in those countries where they originate from.
Okay.
That is, an effort to curb incidents of dumping. Because part of the fears of AFCFTA is that it will lead to dumping by the big economies around the world. They're going to set up factories in neighboring countries, branded names of those countries, and bring it to your economy, thereby threatening the growth of the small players in your economy. Okay. But the rule of origin now says, look, you must guarantee, for instance, if you're having Ethiopian coffee come into our shelves in Nigerian shops, there must be a 100% guarantee it's wholly and 100% Ethiopian.
Okay.
If you have chocolate coming in from Ivory Coast, there must be a guarantee 100% produce of Ivory Coast.
Okay. Now, there's also the issue of false declaration. How do we handle that?
Well, false declaration will be taken care of by standardization.
Okay.
Because you're not just saying your market is open and everybody can bring in things. You're going to have measures at country level now, which is why beyond just being a regional framework, there is going to be a country, which is why the process of ratification takes care of that. You're going to ensure that your standard and measurement departments are up and alive to the responsibilities. The SON in Nigeria, for instance, in other countries they do have, such that you now have products that are certified to play within the free trade area, certified to be standard, durable, and fit into the market economy that Africa is trying to open up. So standardization would not be a problem. Yes, there will be teething problem at the beginning because of implementation, but I believe with all the things laid out in the framework, Africa should be able to manage that.
Quickly, what is the hope of an entrepreneur, just one, that would like to key into the initiative, and then, or better still, those coming as a group?
Well, the individual entrepreneur or a group entrepreneur, as it were, will blossom in the AFCFTA ecosystem.
Rather than going alone.
Yeah, because you are not going to consolidate on what economists will call comparative advantage. Rather than stand alone and not being able to maximize your own economies of scale, you will now be able to say, hey, Lizzie, Wale, let's come together. You bring 100,000, I bring 100,000, and then we'll put resources together. That way we can make a larger output, rather than just doing it at small scale level. That way, when you have entrepreneurs combined, rather than just standing as pockets of entrepreneurs, they will be able to maximize labor, because you have more people employed. You'll be able to maximize technology, power, and so many other resources that will be involved in the process of production. So for me, the AFCFTA provides a good veritable platform for individual entrepreneurs and groups to thrive, because you are going to be maximizing, like I said, on comparative advantage. What is the strength of your country, for instance? If cocoa is the strength, can we go into chocolate production? Can we go into beverage production, rather than just doing it in pockets? So it's a beautiful opportunity for African entrepreneurs, and I think the years that lies ahead, we should be excited
Mr.
as entrepreneurs.
Alawi, thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much. This is the much I can take. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Don't forget, let's grow Africa. This is the only continent we have. It is our own.
Well, Lizzie, we're about to go. Were you educated?
Yes, I was. It was quite expository, because Africa is in for it. There's going to be economic growth. Our entrepreneurs will have money.
All things being equal.
All things being equal.
And also learned that I got to realize that trading has no generational platform.
At all.
Everybody's a trader.
And I think this will help sort the issue of standardization, harmonization of standards. It is very important when it comes to trading between countries, African countries, and which I think it's really important for us to thrive in Africa. We need it.
As much as I sat here and Lizzie sat here, we had it insightful. We believe you also had it insightful. On behalf of all of us, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Today on The Conversation, we'll be talking about bullying.